dermis. The dermis is the second layer of your skin, 真皮层, okay, which is also called the derma, okay, or corium, cutis, or true skin. So they have different names: dermis, derma, corium, cutis, or true skin. This is the support layer of the connective tissue below the epidermis. So the dermal and epidermal junction connects the dermis to the epidermis. This junction consists of layers of connective collagen tissue with many small pockets and holes. The collagen fibrils from the dermis are embedded into this layer to provide strength and adhesive. Keratin filaments on the epidermis side also ensure strength and adhesion to the junction. The dermis is 25 times thicker than the epidermis. Okay? 你的真皮层比你的表皮层厚度是25倍. Okay? 25 times thicker. And consists of two layers, the papillary layer and the reticular layer. Okay? The dermis is primarily comprised of connective tissue made out of collagen and protein and elastin fibers. And the dermis also supplies the skin with oxygen and nutrients. So I am going to show you a video on the dermis. Okay?
Now that we've talked about the epidermis, or our topmost layer of skin, let's descend further down and talk about the dermis, these next two layers of skin, and then we'll also talk about the hypodermis, which is the bottommost layer of skin here. So as you can see, your dermis has two layers to it, and again, it sits right below your epidermis. So your epidermis...
Give me a second, sir. Okay.
The topmost layer of skin sits up here, and if you can recall, the bottommost layer of your epidermis is called the stratum basale, the basal layer of your epidermis. So below that, we have our first layer of the dermis, which is called the papillary dermis. This is the topmost layer of the dermis. And then below the papillary dermis, we have what's called the reticular dermis. The reticular dermis, right here. And the main difference between the dermis versus the epidermis is the type of tissue we have here. Recall that in the epidermis, we had epithelial tissue. So I'll write epithelial tissue up here. And then within the dermis, both layers are going to have something that's called connective tissue. You've probably seen that written out as CT, connective tissue. So connective tissue is different in that it doesn't necessarily involve cells. Epithelial tissue involves things like simple squamous epithelial cells, columnar epithelial cells, even transitional epithelial cells that you may have seen in the bladder. And your connective tissue contains a litany of other proteins, things like actin, which is what you must have heard of when we talked about the muscular system, or collagen, which is another structural protein. These are some of the most popular proteins you see mentioned when we talk about connective tissue, but they also include things like laminin, elastin, desmin. Connective tissue mainly holds things together. If you remember a tendon is connective tissue that holds the muscle onto a bone. And between the papillary dermis and the reticular dermis, there are two types of connective tissue we see here. In the papillary dermis, we have very thin, loose connective tissue. And this allows for all the stuff in the papillary dermis to sort of move around and change shape and position, versus what we have in the reticular dermis, which is thicker, more dense, or denser connective tissue. And the purpose of this is to make things stay still. We anchor things down in the reticular dermis. And we'll talk exactly about what we're anchoring down here in a moment. But as we hop back up to the papillary dermis, there are a variety of things that we have here that have to change shape and position and are able to do so because the connective tissue is so loose. One of the main things we find in the papillary dermis are blood vessels. You recall when you have an arterial from an artery branch off into a capillary. So you've got these couple capillaries right here, and then come back together to make a venule, which goes off to a vein. And realize now that this is the most superficial or the topmost layer of your skin that actually has blood vessels here. So one of the roles is that the capillaries have to deliver oxygen and nutrients that nourish not only your dermis, but actually go up into the epidermis as well. Because the epidermis doesn't have any blood vessels. It relies entirely on the papillary dermis to nourish it. And thank goodness this is thin, loose connective tissue because there's plenty of room here for the capillaries to engorge with blood, fill up with nutrients, and then these nutrients can diffuse across and go up from the dermis into the epidermis and even go lower if necessary. The other thing we have in our dermis are nerve endings. These nerve endings, I'll write this just because my drawing is not as obvious. These nerve endings that sit in our dermis allow us to perceive things like touch and even pain. And then that will pass on a signal across the nerve going in this direction right here like that. And this signal is relayed all the way to a cell body. And this cell body can sit somewhere much further away than the skin. Now, as we get to the reticular dermis, we'll see why it's important to have thick, dense connective tissue down here. And this connective tissue helps anchor things down. One of the things that you can have, and I'll sort of draw it like this, ascending to your epidermis, and so it leaks out over here. This is a gland. You'll have tons of sweat glands and exocrine glands of other varieties that start in your reticular dermis and are anchored and held down here, that extend out with a duct to secrete their contents to the epidermis, to the outside world, kind of at the top layer of your skin. So you've got plenty of glands that sit here. In addition, you'll also have this follicle right here. This follicle will have from it emerging a hair. This hair, I guess I should label this also. The hair, of course, is going to protrude at the top of your skin. It's not that you just have a hair that sits inside. And then this guy right here is just your hair follicle. And so your hair follicle is anchored within your reticular dermis, and the hair itself is allowed to grow and extend out to the top and protrude from your epidermis. One of the other things that we have kind of sitting in your dermis that's anchoring itself onto the hair or the hair follicle is this slab of muscle that we've got right here. So this guy, I'll write it off there. This is an erector pili muscle. An erector pili muscle, and this is involved in extending or having your hair stand straight up when you're cold or when you're scared. And finally, now that we've talked about the dermis, we can move to our last layer of skin. Although it's technically not skin, but it's called the hypodermis. This is the hypodermis, which is a great name because, as you might recall, hypo just means below, and this layer sits right below the dermis. Another name for it is subcutaneous fat, and I think that's also a great name for what we have here. Subcutaneous, if you might remember, cutaneous is just another name for skin, so subcutaneous fat. And that's exactly what we have down here. We have tons of layers of fat that could vary from person to person. And although fat gets a lot of flack, we have to realize that it's very important because there are two main functions they help us achieve. First of all, fat absorbs shock. People that are more insulated with fat are able to withstand traumatic injuries maybe more effectively than others. And the other thing that it does for us is that it insulates our tissue. Because realize that now that we've finished talking about our skin, we've talked about the epidermis, the dermis, and now we've even covered the hypodermis. What sits right below this? You're going to find muscle. Muscle sits down here. It's below that, and perhaps even bone. You know, if you're talking about your chest wall right above your rib, if you put your finger right kind of where your clavicle is above your rib cage or even on your ribs, realize that your Epidermis, dermis, and your hypodermis are all that separate your finger from your rib bone.
Okay. I am going to show you another video that talks about your papillary layer. Okay, so your dermis has 2 layers, right? Your dermis has 2 layers. Okay, the first layer is the papillary layer, and the second layer is the reticular layer. Okay, so the papillary layer is the layer that connects the dermis to the epidermis, forming the epidermal-dermal junction. Now, the dermal papillae are membranes and ridges and grooves that attach to the epidermis. Attached to the dermal papillae are loop capillaries. Okay, see here? These are loop capillaries. Okay, capillaries are the ones that carry blood. So blood vessels are found in your your papillary layer. Okay, so loop capillaries that nourish the epidermis. You have to understand, our first layer of skin, this one here, our epidermis, there is no blood vessel. 我们的表皮层没有血管的，血管是在真皮层的第一层找到。Okay, so our first layer of skin, the 5 layers, there's no blood vessel. That blood vessel is found in the papillary layer of your dermis. Okay, so attached to the capillary nourish the epidermis or the tactile corpuscles, the nerve ending sensitivity to touch and pressure. Okay, you can see this. These are your nerve endings. Okay, or this is a better picture. Let me see here. These are your nerve endings. Okay, these are your nerve endings. So there's nerve ending for cold, pain, touch, heat, and pressure. So these are receptacles that takes the signal, okay, and sends it to your brain or your body to react. Okay. So if you can look at this picture, you can see in the dermis.
From the York campus attack. And this.
Okay, and your dermis. Okay, this is your dermis. There's 2 layers. So this is your veins and capillary blood vessels. Okay, and then also in your dermis, the papillary layer, you can also find the hair follicle or the hair papillae, which is a small cone shape. So this is your hair papillae. This cone shaped thing here is your hair papillae of the hair, this cone shaped thing here. Okay, and then the papillary layer has 10 to 20% of the dermis. Collagen and elastin is more widely spaced here than in the reticular area. So your dermis has 2 layers. The papillary layer and the reticular layer. This one is only 10 to 20% of the dermis. So this one is a thinner layer. Okay, it's thinner layer, thinner than this. This one is thicker. Okay, 这个真皮层有2层，第一层比较薄，第一层大概是10到20%。你的那个真皮层，第二层 reticular area 比较厚。Okay, so collagen and elastin is found here. So that's why in this video earlier on, it says that this layer here is a thin, loose connective tissue. The connective tissue consists of collagen and elastin. Okay, so the reticular layer has connective tissue. Okay, connective tissue. See here, the dermis. Okay, your dermis is made up of connective tissue. Okay, connective tissue. and it's made up of collagen, protein, and elastin fibers. That's why in here, if you look at this here, the purple color is your collagen. Okay, so the collagen is found in your dermis. But the first layer, papillary, has collagen and elastin, but it's a thin layer. And then the second layer, which is your reticular layer, okay, it's a denser and deeper layer of the dermis. Also, it's thicker. Denser means what? It's tighter. Denser means it's tighter. Okay, the papillary layer is loose. Okay, that's why it says the papillary dermis is thin, loose connective tissue, whereas the reticular dermis is thicker, dense connective tissue. Okay, 就是说这两层，这一层比较松，这一层比较紧 ，denser 就是比较紧。OK， 为什么会紧？因为它可以 hold 住那些毛囊啊，那些其他的东西，所以它必须要厚一点。Why is the reticular layer denser? Is because you saw in the video it anchors in like the hair glands and the sweat glands, the hair follicle. It needs to hold. You need this thing to hold it so it will not move around. That's why over here is denser. 所以它这边比较厚，因为它要防止这个东西动，所以它可以固定这些好像那个汗的那个gland， 还有那个 hair follicle 那个头发的那个毛囊。So the reticular layer comprised mainly of collagen and elastin. So damage to these elastin fibers as they break down are the primary cause of sagging and wrinkle and aging, loss of elasticity in the skin. Okay, so stretch marks are also caused by damaged elastin fibers. Now, stretch mark means, like people who are pregnant, after they give birth to a pregnant, they will see the skin has got like marks on them, red marks. They're called stretch mark because the skin has been stretched. The skin has been stretched, and then after the baby is gone, the skin closed back, so you can see all the lines. So that's the stretch marks. That's because there's damage to the elastin fiber. Or people who are very fat and then suddenly they lose weight, you will see stretch marks on their skin. Because when they're fat, they stretch their skin, and then when they lose weight, the skin closes back. That's why the elastin becomes damaged because it's stretched too much. Collagen and elastin are broken down by UV damage and other factors. So the reticular layer is where you find other things in there. So I'm going to show you a video of the papilla and so you can see here the dermis, okay, has the papillary and the reticular region. Okay.
This podcast, I'll be reviewing the area of the skin called the dermis. The dermis is the thicker, deeper area of the skin and is made of dense, irregular connective tissue with abundant collagen and elastic fibers, which gives it great tensile strength, allowing it to stretch and recoil. Cell types found in the dermis include the fibroblasts, which secrete protein fibers. The suffix blast means to build or grow. Also, a type of white blood cell called a macrophage and adipocytes or fat cells are found in the dermis near the subcutaneous layer. There are many diverse accessory structures in the dermis, including the hair follicles, glands, blood vessels, nerves, and lymphatic vessels. The dermis is composed of two regions, a thin, superficial papillary region and a thicker, deeper reticular region. The papillary region is the thinner of the two regions and is located immediately deep to the epidermis. It consists of areolar connective tissue containing collagen and elastic fibers. It contains lots of surface area due to its dermal papillae, which are small, nipple-like protrusions that connect with the lower surface of the epidermis, almost like the way jigsaw puzzle pieces connect to each other. The dermal papillae contain blood vessels called capillary loops that nourish the cells of the region, but also the stratum basale cells of the epidermis. Different sensory receptors are also found in the papillary region. The papillae are innervated with corpuscles of touch, also called Meissner corpuscles.
Okay, so as you can see here, this one here are different nerve endings. Okay, the different nerve endings are for like touch, for pain. Okay, so these are all different.这是你的神经线，它们样子是不同，是因为有的是痛感，有的是那个触碰的那个感觉。Okay, so this is the 神经线. These two are your nerve, and then the red one is your capillary. Okay, that feeds your skin with nutrients, brings food and oxygen to your skin. 红色是那个红血管呢，是带那些血液有氧气跟食物给你的皮肤。And then the blue one is the capillary that carries the blood away from the skin back to the heart. 蓝色呢是代表那些血管把那些那个血已经没有了氧气，而且带那些废物离开那个皮肤去到你的心脏。And then this one is your sweat glands, the duct to your sweat glands. Okay, 这个就是你那个汗毛囊。Okay, and then this one is your hair. 这是你的发廊。Okay, out to the skin. Okay, 那个发的。And then this is your sebaceous gland. And this is your areola. Okay. All this is found in your dermis, okay?
Which are touch-sensitive nerve endings. Papillae also have free nerve endings, which are naked dendrites that are able to detect different sensations such as pain, tickle, itch, and temperature. We all know that our fingers, palms, toes, and soles are covered in a complex pattern of ridges and grooves. These lines, loops, and whorls are called epidermal ridges and are produced during the third month of fetal development as the epidermis sinks down into the dermis between the dermal papillae. This pattern is unique for everyone, even twins, and is determined in part by genetics. These ridges help maintain a strong connection between the epidermis and dermis in areas of the skin that are under intense physical stress and pressure, helping to keep these skin regions connected. The ridges form the thicker part of the fingerprints or footprints upon touch. The reticular region is the deeper, thicker part of the dermis and is connected to the subcutaneous layer. Reticular means net-like and describes the complex network of collagen fibers, elastic fibers, fibroblasts, macrophages, and adipose cells found throughout this region. The collagen fibers are bundled together to provide strong protein reinforcement that helps the skin resist stretching. The elastic fibers give the skin extensibility, meaning it can stretch, and elasticity, meaning it can return back to its original shape after stretching. Between the protein fibers of the dermis are a collection of accessory structures, including hair follicles, blood vessels and nerves, as well as various glands, such as sudoriferous or sweat glands, and sebaceous or oil glands, which are often associated with the hair follicle. The variety of the skin's coloration is due to three main pigments, melanin, hemoglobin, and carotene, which color the skin from pale yellow to reddish brown to black, flowing through the capillaries in the dermis. We already know that the melanocytes produce melanin in the epidermis and transfer the pigment into the keratinocytes.
Okay, so this is your dermis.
The skin is connective tissue that consists of cells, fibers, and the dermis is the thicker inner layer of skin. Beneath the dermis lies a layer of loose connective tissue called subcutaneous tissue or the hypodermis. Deeper tissues, including muscle, tendon, ligament, joint capsule, and bone, lie beneath the subcutaneous tissue layer. The dermal epidermal junction or basement membrane zone separates the epidermis from the dermis.
Okay, so this is this layer here, that's like that. The thin layer is your papillary layer. Okay, so your papillary layer is thinner, 10 to 20%. So over here, if you look at page 238, now your dermis, you can find in here is collagen and elastin, blood vessels, nerve endings, hair follicle, and also blood. What do you call that? Your auriculapilar muscles, sebaceous gland, and sweat gland is all in here in your dermis. Okay, now the collagen. Okay, it's a protein substance complex fibers that give your skin the strength and is necessary for wound healing. So produced by fibroblasts. Now remember, fibroblast is a cell. Okay, fibroblast 是一个细胞. Okay, so produced by fibroblasts, collagen makes up 70% of your dermis. So your entire dermis, okay, is 70% collagen. 这个 fibroblast 呢，这个细胞是生产胶原蛋白，而这个胶原蛋白呢，整个真皮层呢70%是胶原蛋白。So 70% of your dermis is made up of collagen, and collagen is produced by fibroblasts. We need fibroblasts because fibroblasts is necessary for wound healing. Okay, so the fibroblast cells produce proteins and aid in the production of elastin and collagen. Okay, now the elastin is a small percentage of the dermis. Elastin is only 1/15 compared to the amount of collagen. So elastin is the fibrous protein that forms the elastic tissue and gives your skin elasticity. Elasticity 就是弹性。Okay, so elastin 给我们的皮肤弹性。Okay, collagen 给我们的皮肤那个厚度。So collagen gives our skin the firmness, and elastin gives our skin the elasticity. Okay? Now, blood vessels, capillaries, lymph vessels, follicles, sebaceous gland, sweat gland, sensory nerves, receptacles, auriculapilar muscles are all in the dermis. Lymph vessels are to remove waste products, bacteria, and excess water. Okay, 你的淋巴那个淋巴管也是在那个真皮层，它是帮你去掉废物跟细菌跟多余的水。Okay, fibroblast, lymphocytes, ligand cells, mast cells, okay, for allergic leukocyte cells are all found in the dermis. Okay, 在这个真皮层你会找到这些细胞，这些细胞都是帮我们抗那些外面的细菌。Okay, so all these cells, lymphocytes, ligands, mast cells, leukocytes, they're all to fight allergies and bacteria, okay, or virus or parasites, okay. Whereas fibroblast is for producing collagen and elastin, okay. 115, give me a second. 115. 1 divided by 15 times 70%. So, as you can see here, it says that the elastin is only 1/15 compared to the amount of collagen. That means what? If if you talk about percentage, okay, sorry, if you talk about percentage, the elastin is about 7% only. So the whole dermis, 70% is collagen, about 7% is elastin. Okay, so and then over here, collagen and extracellular matrix protein gives support and function to the skin. So it also gives tautness or firmness to the skin by reacting with elastin and hyaluronic acid. Now, hyaluronic acid is a serum that hydrates your skin. Hyaluronic acid 呢是一种 serum， 它是保湿的。Okay, hyaluronic acid 是保湿的。Hormones such as EGF and fibroblast glow, FGF, stimulate fibroblast cells, proteins, and DNA synthesis. So, the dermis also has the fluid matrix called the ground substance. It is also referred to as extracellular matrix, which is composed of collagen and proteins and glycosaminoglycans, GAGs. Okay, glycosaminoglycans contains the intercellular substance also contains water, okay, to maintain water balance and provide dermal support and assist in cell metabolism, growth, and migration. Okay, glycosaminoglycans are large protein molecules and water-binding substance found between the fibers of the dermis. Okay, glycosaminoglycans or GAGs are polysaccharides, protein, and sugar. So this one itself is made out of protein and sugar complex. Okay, so they are molecules and water binding substance. Okay, so they are great for hydrating your skin. So hyaluronic acid is a beneficial hydrating fluid, a part of your dermis system. That means in your dermis, okay, you will find proteins called glycosaminoglycans and hyaluronic acid. Okay, these are found in your dermis to maintain intercellular fluid, so your skin will not dry up. Okay, 就是说在你的真皮层呢，你会找到这两种protein， 只会看到这个是蛋白 ，OK， 这是蛋白，这是蛋白呢是糖分 ，OK， 然后呢，这个 hyaluronic acid 是保持水分。OK， 所以呢，在这个真皮层呢，你会有这个蛋白跟这个 hyaluronic acid。Okay. Any questions on the papillary and the reticular area of the dermis? 真皮层有没有问题 ？Okay. Okay. No questions? Okay. Just remember hormones such as the EGF and the fibroblast growth factor FGF stimulates, collagen growth and proteins and then DNA synthesis here, in the dermis area. Now, I need you to know that collagenase and elastase are enzymes that help protect collagen and elastin. However, when excessive levels are produced from UV radiation or other damage, it can cause dermal breakdown and premature aging. That means what? When you have too much sunlight, it can damage your collagen. That's why you will see your skin start to have wrinkles, start to sag. It's because you lost your collagen. Because of the UV radiation, it damages your collagen. 所以避免不要晒太多太阳，因为太阳呢能导致你的 collagen 收缩，破坏你的那个蛋白。那这个 collagen 是什么？胶原蛋白是吗 ？collagen。所以呢，所以为什么皮肤就会变成有那个皱纹啊 ？OK， 还有皮肤会下垂，都是因为 collagen 减少了 ，OK， 被破坏了。Okay, so no questions. I will see you guys tomorrow at 9 o'clock. 如果没有问题的话，我们明天9点见。No, tomorrow is Saturday. I'm sorry. I'll see you on Monday. Okay? Now, before you go, I need you to do homework on your workbook. 你们走之前，拿你们的 workbook 出来。Okay? I want you to do chapter 8. Workbook, chapter 8. Chapter 8, page 86, 87, and of course up to number 12. Okay, 87 up to number 12. So 87, there's like 12 questions. Okay.
Excuse me, teacher.
What?
High frequency and where is it? High frequency and high frequency current are same?
Yes. High frequency means thermal heat with high electrical current. That's why it's called high frequency. High electrical current with thermal heat. That's why it's called high frequency. But I want you to do homework page 87. Okay? Page 87, page 88 of this book. Okay? Page 87, 88 of this workbook. Okay? This workbook. 87, 86, 87, 90, 91. That's it. Okay? Homework 86, 87, 90, 91. Okay? 作业啊 86, 87, 90, 91. Okay?
Sure.
什么雅雅鹏
这个是那个美容那个练习册这本书是吗？所以
对你，我发一个网站给你哈，你可以去那个网站买10几块钱的，很便宜，不用买那本书。等一下我发给你 ，OK？
谢谢。
Okay, bye bye. So I'll see you guys next week at 9 o'clock on Monday. Have a good weekend. Bye bye. For those who don't have the book, I will send you the link to the book. Okay, bye bye.